Okay, so we are continuing with our discussion for Shacharit, for Shabbat. Last couple of times we discussed the two first units of the morning service, Birkot HaShachar, and even we got into the Korbanot and we spoke about that a little bit. Today we're going to start Pesukei Dezimra. And so we're going to open our Sidurim on page 368. 368. Okay. So just to kind of summarize what we did, what we said about the Shabbat morning tefillah, the beginning is pretty much similar to what we have every day, meaning the first two units, the unit of Birkot HaShachar and the unit of Korbanot is pretty much similar to what we do every day. There are tchinot, there are certain supplications, there are certain things that change in the Korbanot between Shabbat and of course we read the verses of the Korban Musaf of Shabbat. Okay. I'm going to say something that is just reality. Most places today do not really read the verses of the Korbanot. So we're not going to go in depth there. But it's important to note that therefore the beginning of the morning tefillah is very similar to every day in that sense. Okay, the morning blessings and all that kind of stuff. Here we go. There's another siddur here for you. Okay, we're page 368. We'll start with Mizmor Chanukot Habayit LeDavid, Psalm 30, which is very interesting story behind that. So that's the way we do it every day. Every day we start our unit of Pesukei Dezimra with Psalm 30. However, there's a interesting practice. If you look actually at Sidur Nusach Sfarad or even Sephardic Nusach, it's the same idea. You will see that this particular Mizmor comes later on. It comes later on in the unit. So I'm just going to explain. Where is it? Here we go. So in Nusach Sfarad, and the Sephardic Nusach makes no difference, Mizmor Chanukot Habayit LeDavid, i.e. Psalm 30, comes after Hodu. Now, Hodu, we're going to get there in a second. Hodu is not the turkey, but it's rather, it's the next page on page 370. It's a collection of verses that we have from the book of Chronicles. It's a long paragraph. And those two parts are part of a fascinating discussion in the history of our tefillah. So what is going on? In order to understand that, we have to look actually, historically. So we need to understand that historically, Birkot HaShachar, Pesukei Dezimra, that unit of Pesukei Dezimra. What does it mean, Pesukei Dezimra? Pesukei Dezimra, that means Psalms that serve as a preparation for the tefillah. Okay, let me break it down for a second. When the Talmud talks about tefillah, the Talmud specifically refers to the Amidah. That's the heart of the tefillah. So when the Talmud, when you see the word tefillah, prayer, it means amidah, the Shmona Esrei. That's number one. We have a separate, independent mitzvah, which is the Shema. Right? Based on the pasuk of Shochbecha V'komecha, we have twice a day, we have the obligation to recite the Shema. Okay, so in the beginning, it was only the first paragraph. Later on, we added the second paragraph, the third paragraph, whatever. The difference between our practice and Reform practice when it comes to the third paragraph doesn't matter. Second paragraph and the third paragraph. We're going to get there. We're going to discuss it at length. But that's an independent mitzvah, okay, to recite the Shema. Now, what happens? The rabbis already before the times of the Talmud, already at the times of Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, decided to wrap that unit of the Shema with blessings. Okay, this is a practice that we see in many, many other places. We have, for example, Hallel, right? So Hallel is a biblical passages that has a bracha before and a bracha after, right? The Shema is therefore similar way. It's a biblical passage. And then we have rabbinic text, brachot, blessings before and after, etc., etc. Okay, so this is a very, very ancient practice to take a biblical text and to make it into a sandwich. You know, basically, you have rabbinic text, mainly brachot, before and after that biblical text. Now, so we have that Shema, which is an independent mitzvah. It's an obligation by itself to recite it twice a day. And the rabbis wrap it with blessings before and after. Fine. Then comes the Amidah, which is the heart of the tefillah, which the Talmud refers to as tefillah. Okay. Now, in order to be practical and realizing that, you know, to make our life a little bit easier or more difficult, if you ask other people, the rabbis decided to kind of like juxtapose and put like the whole thing together. When you do the tefillah, when you do the Amidah, which is the obligation for tefillah, let's juxtapose the Shema, the obligation to recite the Shema, already to the tefillah. So you come to shul, you're gonna kill two birds in one stone. Fine? Okay. It has, by the way, a lot of implications. We're going to discuss it in depth when we get to that unit. Now, when you have a meal, you don't go right into the main course. I mean, sometimes you do, but yeah, generally speaking, you want to start with an appetizer. Yeah, okay, you know, there's a progress, right? You go to a concert, you know, they have something like, you know, a warming band or something before the main, right? And the artist is not going to start like, you know, with the biggest hit. There's a way to build something, right? When you read a book, there's an intro, right? So the rabbis understood it very, very early on that you need preparation, mental preparation, in order to get to tefillah. Now think about it like in a linear way. If I have the tefillah, meaning the Amidah, I need some preparation. Oh, but next to it, I have the Shema. Okay, so I need, before the Shema, some sort of a preparation, right? Fine. This is the functionality of this unit. So the Talmud says that the people at that time, Chasidim Rishonim, as the Talmud refers to the early pious ones, they used to wait, and trust me, they were not sitting and just like looking on their phone. Before, like a whole hour, Shachat, whether it's a whole hour literally or just some time before the tefillah and after, as a kind of a mental preparation. Meditation, reading Psalms, I don't know, whatever. They did something. Fine. So the rabbis started to institute this idea of preparation. How do we prepare? What does it mean to actually prepare? Okay, fine. So that means some sort of I need to be inspired. I need to get my mind to think in a certain way, whatever. Put other things away and focus on other things. Okay. And how do we Jews do that? Usually it's Tehillim. Usually it's Tehillim. If things are bad, we read Tehillim. If things are good, we have also Tehillim, the Hallelujahs and stuff like that. That's at least in the old days, that was the practice. When we need inspiration, we go to Tehillim. Why? Because King David, who wrote most of the Tehillim, was able to express all that range of emotions. And since there's so many chapters of Tehillim, hopefully you can find something that relates to you. Now, can we go and do our own mental preparation and think about certain things and read other things in order to get us there? I guess theoretically, yes. Practically, the rabbis institute those particular Tehillim as the formula that set us, to be there. Why? Because most people can't. Most of us cannot verbalize adequately all that stuff. This is why tefillot were started to be written, because otherwise, before that, you just said whatever you wanted, right? We talked about that, this tension between keva and kavana, right? The sporadic, inspirational moments in life where, you just talk to God in times of challenge or in good times, and you don't need a set text. But most of the times, especially if you come to a daily minyan, you need some help. It's not that like you have like a clear, articulate, speech in your head that you can communicate with God. You need the help of the sages, and this is why tefillot started to be formulated. Okay. So we're gonna have in this unit a bunch of Pirkei Tehillim, Psalms, that the idea behind that they're supposed to prepare us mentally to tefillah. And usually that's what we do. We use the words of King David to express ourselves. But God forbid. Okay, we have this practice since October 7th here in the shul that we recite Tehillim every day in the morning and in the evening after every tefillah we recite Tehillim. Right? Because of everything that's happening in Israel. Let me ask you, why do you think we do that? Do you really believe that the fact that we recite Tehillim is going to make any difference? No, that's not Judaism. We don't believe in that. You know what do we believe? We believe, and unfortunately it's not highlighted enough, we believe that recitation of Tehillim is going to inspire us to act in a certain way. It enables us to express our feelings, our hopes, our requests from God. If we want, we ask God to help the soldiers. We ask God to all that kind of stuff. And what we do is we recite the Tehillim because it somehow expresses our feelings. But the idea is it's supposed to inspire us so we can actually use our own words. Okay? That's what, this is not, some voodoo thing. Okay, say, X, Y, and Z, that's the formula and that's it, it's done. We don't believe in that. Judaism is not about that. Judaism is about actions. We use Tehillim as inspiration. We use it to help us articulate for ourselves what do we want, how to ask God, what to ask. Okay, are we clear? All right, so have that in mind. That is the function of that unit. Now, what happens in the weekday unit of Pesukei Dezimra, right? So the weekday unit is shorter than the Shabbat unit. We're going to talk about that in a second. But technically, it's a well-defined unit. You remember when I said that we have an ancient practice where we have a biblical text and we make it into a sandwich. We have rabbinic text before and after. Yes, I just said a couple of minutes ago. Yeah, okay, good. This is another example. We have biblical text, right? This is Tehillim, but we're going to have rabbinic text before and after. The rabbinic text is Baruch Shamar. It's going to be a blessing. And Yishtabach, which is another blessing. These are rabbinic texts that are going to define that unit of biblical texts. So far, so good? Good. Now, so the unit technically, and by the way, in some old traditions, still starts with the blessing. Okay, so I come from a Yeke family, okay, and I daven in the old German Nusach, and still that German Nusach does not include, for example, that Psalm 30, we're going to talk about it in a second, because the unit's supposed to start with a rabbinic text. What is the rabbinic text? It's Baruch Shamar. It's the next paragraph. So I personally do not recite that unless I'm leading davening, and of course, then I do what the congregation is. Okay? So we have Baruch Shamar. So Baruch Shamar is the opening blessing for that unit. It's a rabbinic text. And that was the custom. That was the practice. Now, that unit, that selection of biblical text, Tehillim, whatever we have there, went through a lot of changes in the history. Okay, it started with Ashrei, started with Psalm 150, and then the one before was added, and then like more hallelujahs, and then we added this, and when he added it, okay, so we ended up where we ended up. Fascinating discussion when it came to this particular Psalm, Psalm 30. So it's a later addition. It's a later addition. Fine. If you look at the Sephardic tradition, you'll see that Mizmor Shechanukat Abayit David appears after Hodu, as I mentioned. However, in Nusach Ashkenaz, as you can see, it's before the rest of the other Psalms. It's actually before the blessing of Baruch Shamar. And not only that, there's a Kaddish separating that Psalm and the Bracha. So what is going on here? Why? It was a huge debate whether to include it or not. Rabbis were debating about it for a long time. And finally, the compromise was, okay, we're going to add it, but in the beginning, before the bracha, because it was not originally part of the collection. And in order to show that it's not really part of the original collection, we're going to separate it. So A, it's going to be outside of the bracha. And then we're going to do a Kaddish because the Kaddish is a separator, something that tells me, right? This is the compromise of Nusach Ashkenaz. What happened with the Sephardic Nusach? Sephardic Nusach said, what are you talking about? The bracha, look at the next page for a second. In Baruch Shamar on page 370. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seventh line. In the middle, he said, V'sherei David avdecha. How are we going to praise you? Right? It's called Pesukei Dezimra. Pesukei Dezimra, songs of praise. Right? How are we going to praise you, God? With the songs of David. What do you want? This psalm was written by David. So what's the problem? Why can't we include it? And therefore, it comes after the bracha in the Sephardic Nusach. Okay, so we have another psalm by David. What's the problem? It belongs there with the rest of them, with the Hallelujah, with the Ashrei, with all the rest of them. So it's not a problem. Ashkenazim said, no. Originally, it was not part of there. Therefore, we're going to show that it's not. And therefore, it's outside of the bracha. It's before the bracha. and we're going to separate it with a Kaddish. Okay, that's the difference between the Ashkenaz and Sephardic Nusach when it comes to Psalm 30. So far, so good? Yes. Amazing. Amazing. I was waiting for somebody to ask that. What's the previous unit? You can look at the weekday. It's that's not the Birkot HaShachar. It's, to be more exact. No. Look at page. Well, Kaddish is a separator. It's not a unit by itself. Okay. It's what? Look at so Bizmotion, if you look at the weekday version, what? Well, learning is wide way of learning.
Oh, because you made
No. Yeah, well, that we talked about that. We talked about it. We have there Elu Dvarim She'enam Shiur. We have a Mishnah there to take care of the brachot of the Birkot HaTorah. No, we just read korbanot. What are the korbanot? It's not just like reading it for fun. It's actually learning that text of the korbanot. So remember what we talked last time? That the rabbis decided to do what we call shlish, meaning like the time or whatever when you learn Torah is going to be also rabbinic texts. Remember that? Not only biblical texts, but also rabbinic texts. So therefore, if we're dealing with the rabbinic texts of the korbanot, then what? Yeah, it doesn't. It's very long. I get it. But what's going to follow is going to be a rabbinic text that relates to that. That's the Torah study, right? So the Torah study is the entire korbanot is Torah study, right? So what do we have there at the end of the it's a Torah study. That's functionality of the fact that we just studied Torah. What is this rabbinic text that we're talking about? It's a Mishnah, for example, page 42, Mishnah from Zvachim, that talks Eizehu mekoman shel Zvachim, right? What is the particular location of those korbanot? How do we deal with that? Blah 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 blah. Parim and all those Mishnayot, right? It deals with the material of the korbanot. It's an expansion of those verses that we just learned, right? The verses from the Torah talks about the korbanot. Fine. So now we have biblical and rabbinic text that deals with the same topic. Now we're going to be, let's call it, conclude that unit. We have to do something that is kind of a summarize. So what did they choose? Look at the page 48 at the end. It's a midrash. It's a braita, right? Rabbi Ishmael says, through 13 rules is the Torah elucidated. That means after reading Torah, after reading the Mishnayot, after learning Torah, we need to learn what are the principles by which it's kind of a sum. So these are the principles by which we learn Torah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 13. Okay. So now we understand why that is there. So the Torah study is an outcome of the fact that we read the korbanot. Now, what is the theme of the korbanot? Well, the theme of the korbanot. Right. The theme is the korbanot. We discuss the sacrifices, we discuss the Beit HaMikdash, we discuss the form, all the details of that stuff. Right? That's what we just did. Now, you want me to jump from this into Psalms of praise? I can't. If I'm really into my davening, if I'm really into my learning, if I actually mean what I say, if I connect to that text, it's impossible. Why? Because discussing all that korbanot and all that stuff makes me realize that, oh my God, this is depressing. Because I don't have Beit HaMikdash. I cannot bring the korbanot. All that stuff is a huge part that is missing from our lives. Well, that led to a lot of people saying, whoa, that's depressing. That's really depressing. Now you want me to start praising God? Hey, hallelujah. No, I can't. I need a transition. I can't. What was the transition? Psalm 30. Why? Look at Psalm 30. What is the end? I'm just going to save you. No. You undid my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, so my soul might make music, so you and not be stilled. Hashem, my God, forever will I thank you. What is the background for writing this Tehillim, by the way? Anyone knows? Again, this is not scientific. This is the tradition. Anyone knows? No. King David. Okay, so King David has a what's called thing with Bathsheba. Everybody knows the story. I don't need to explain, right? She was whatever, married, the question, whatever. She was pregnant. They were together and then she was pregnant. What happened to that boy? No, that's the second. The first one died. And the book of Samuel tells us in details that King David, the boy was sick for a long time until the boy died. And we're told that King David was davening and praying and mourning and all that kind of stuff and fasting and only then, after the death of the boy, he got up and Yoav came to him and said you're the king. Show must go on. You gotta get yourself together, and he did and whatever. And we'll learn a lot from that practice. But this is, according to tradition, this is when King David wrote that psalm. Hafachta mispedi lemacholi. You, God, gave me the power to move on. Okay? I was wearing sackcloth. I was in mourning. And now I'm back into life. This is the inspiration, or at least that's the story, the inspiration that is connected to that psalm. And this is what we draw, our inspiration, so we can go ahead and start Hashem Elokai le'olam odecha. So I can praise you, God. I will thank you. I can praise you. The story of King David reverberates in my mind when I read that psalm. And therefore, if I'm depressed because of the loss of the temple, that's supposed to give me the inspiration. That psalm supposed to give me the ability to move on, to praise God. It's a transition. So now that I'm depressed because of the korbanot, and I need to go into the Psalms of praise, this is the transition. Now you understand why it was brought, but why in Nusach Ashkenaz they said, you know what? In that case, let's put it in the beginning, immediately after the korbanot, because it's going to be a transition. Okay? So this is Psalm 30. So as we said in Nusach Ashkenaz, after Psalm 30, we have a Kaddish. Specifically here, page 368 in the bottom, it's a mourner's Kaddish, We spoke about that in the past. Why specifically a mourner's Kaddish? Because we said, what? No. No. That's very creative. But no. The rules, in Halacha we have like rules. It's because it's a very similar reason, not similar, it's exactly the same reason as when we said that in Kabbalat Shabbat, right? Kabbalat Shabbat, the rabbis put a Kaddish there to separate that from the Mariv or the Torah study that takes place or whatever, right? So the main functionality of the Kaddish is to create separations between different units of Tefillah. It can be any Kaddish almost, but what is Kabbalat Shabbat is also a public recitation of Tehillim. What is this? This is also a public recitation of Tehillim. And therefore, when we have a public recitation of Tehillim, it prompts the mourner's Kaddish. Doesn't have to, but that's the tradition. That's the tradition. This is why we, like for example, in Azkarot, right, and memorials and that kind of stuff, we say Tehillim, right? When you go to, the practice is when you go to the Matzeva, you go to the kever of somebody, right? So what do we do? We recite Tehillim. That's the, well, that's the traditional, what do we do, right? Because later on it's going to be also a Kaddish. It's less here in Chutz La'aretz and more in Israel. In Israel, the Azkarot happens, you go annually to the kever and there's a recitation of that. Then you recite Kaddish. Same goes for, this is why a lot of congregations, for example, we don't have that custom. A lot of congregations during Yizkar include the mourner's Kaddish. We don't have that. It's not, okay? But if you want to do that, if you want to include the mourner's Kaddish, this is why you'll see in that particular practice that they included also Psalm 23 just before that, because you need a public recitation of Tehillim in order to be able to do the mourner's Kaddish. Okay? That's not the only function, but one of them. Yes?
You mentioned several times the tradition, changing, debate, etc.
Of course.
Do we have written, other written traces of this?
Yeah. There's
from Rabbi, etc.
Yeah, you just need to collect that like in millions of books. But yeah, but all that stuff is pretty much documented. Yeah. I'm gonna talk to you later about that. There's like the series of books that I wanna recommend to you. Anyway, so we have the mourner's Kaddish. Fine. Then we go into the bracha itself. Right? We open a unit, as we said, so page 370, it's Baruch Shamar. And Baruch Shamar is very interesting bracha. For example, a tour, the tour has fascinating, to me at least, fascinating halacha that he says that this must be sung. He said it's called Pesukei Dezimra. It's songs. So it includes it's not our practice, but it's interesting that he brings that to halacha that you need to actually sing it. Baruch Shamar acknowledges 7 aspects of God: creation through divine speech. Baruch Shamar ba'aya olam, right? So what is this reference to? That's what we call the ma'amarot. The story I'm going to take you back to, the story of creation. How did God create the world? Vayomer Elohim yehi or. Vayomer Elohim yehi rakia. God said, and therefore something happened. So that's called ma'amarot. Ma'amar, amar. Right? So God said, and something happened. So what are the 7 aspects? Creation through divine speech. continual divine action and fulfillment of the decrees. Baruch Omer ve'oseh. Baruch gozer u'mekayem. God said and follow through. It's not like, you have an employees that don't follow through. No. Follow through. Gozer u'mekayem. God makes a decree and it happens. Okay? And God's mercy. Baruch merachem al habriot. Nonetheless, there is mercy. God is merciful. Reward for those who fear him. Meshalem sachar tov lire'av. Right? God rewards those who fear him. God's eternal nature, that's another aspect. Chai la'ad v'kayam lanetzach. God is eternal. And finally, God's role in rescuing and redeeming people. And so I said this number 6, God's role in rescuing and redeeming people. I'm plagiarizing myself here, so I'm allowed to do that. Podeh umatzil, right? God redeems me and saves. And then the final is the blessing of God's name. Baruch Shemo. So God's name by itself is a blessing. And this is, by the way, it's an interesting concept. When we say "V'nivrechu b'cha kol mishpechot ha'adama," or "Yesimcha Hashem, Yevarechecha Hashem v'yishmerech," or "V'yasem lecha shalom," right? That's God's name. So we refer to anything that is attached to God's name is automatically has that concept of bracha, of blessing in it. This is why we give bracha to our children. This is why we invoke God's name in brachot. Okay, that's the whole concept of brachot. Okay. So it seems that this particular bracha, even though it's already mentioned in the Talmud, it becomes popular and finalized, like the formula is finalized somewhere around the 9th century. And the Rambam, right, just to put things in historical perspective, right, the Rambam writes the Mishneh Torah around 1175. Okay, I mean, it took more than a year, right? It's 14 books, but around that time he writes already that this was the work of Anshe Knesset Hagdola. Okay, fine. It's a beautiful bracha, and as I said, נהללך השם אלוקינו בשבחות ובזבירות, נגדלך ונשבחך ובשירי דוד עבדיך, right? We use what we're saying here. We're going to use the words of King David in order to praise you, God. That means in that unit, which is, have that in mind because it has implications. That line has a lot of implications. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of traditions associated with this bracha. Like, for example, there's a tradition, I don't know where it is. I think it's a braita, but don't quote me on that. That says that, that text kind of fell on a piece of paper from heaven. Okay, that's one tradition. Another Kabbalistic idea, if you count, you see that there's Baruch, it's 15 times here, parallel to the 15 steps in the Beit HaMikdash. That's supposed to get you to ascend every time you say Baruch. All sorts of ideas, okay, associated with that. Right or wrong, doesn't matter. It's cute traditions. Anyway, which takes us to the next paragraph. text paragraph is what we call the Hodu, which is also very, very interesting paragraph. So this is a collection of psukim. This is collection of psukim first from Chronicles and then from Psalms, which created again a debate. Why? Because we say, wait, when we talk about Shirei David Avdecha, the songs of King David, we refer to specifically to Tehillim. We don't quote dialogues that King David has in the book of Samuel. Everybody understands that the songs of David are Tehillim. And indeed, the vast majority of this unit is Tehillim. It's all Tehillim. The word, it's the songs of King. It's not only the words of David, it's the songs of David. That's a problem. Because these are not Tehillim. The first half of this paragraph of the Hodu collection are verses from Chronicles, Book of Chronicles. So it was a debate, okay? And make a long story short, it was added and all the traditions, everybody accepted it. Why? Because at the end of the day, it is the words of King David, and it's not only that, it's the words of King David in his monumental speech when he was making the preparation to he started the project of building Beit HaMikdash, collecting the money and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Okay. Then what I want you to do is to look. There's a huge difference between the Shabbat Shacharit, so we're on page 374, versus the weekday Shacharit here. Here we differ big time. So if you look on page 64, you'll see that after that section, that Hodu section, we go into Psalm 100. Okay? I'm sorry? Mizmor Todah. We don't say it on Shabbos, I know. But we're going back to Tehillim, right? But what happens here? Here we have other Tehillim. So, first point, we do not say Psalm 100 that we recite every day. Why? What is Psalm 100? Correct. So, correct. So, on Shabbat, we know that in Beit HaMikdash they brought korbanot also on Shabbat. So you had the Tamid, Korban Tamid, right? The everyday Korban was brought, Shabbat or not, Yom Kippur, regular Tuesday, it doesn't matter. So it was also on Shabbat. And then on top of that, there was also the Korban Musaf, right? The specific Korban that was brought on Shabbat. However, on Beit HaMikdash, these are not the only type of korbanot that were brought. There were also what we call korbanot nedava. Yeah, additional donations, right? People brought all sorts of korbanot or korbanot shlamim, and certain of the chatat were brought as well, right? One type of korban is korban todah, the Thanksgiving korban. Okay? Somebody wanted to say thank you to God, whatever. Today we kind of It's an interesting thing by itself, but whatever, the Birkat HaGomel functions similarly to that Korban Todah today. So that Korban was not brought on Shabbat. Why? Because you don't have to bring it on that day. You can bring it on Sunday. You can bring it on Friday. It doesn't have to be on that particular day. You have that flexibility. And because of that, we don't bring it on Shabbat. On Shabbat, they brought only the korbanot that must be brought on that day. All the others was pushed. Okay? Otherwise, it's violating Shabbat. Right? So now, Korban Todah, Psalm 100, is the psalm that was recited as the Korban Todah was brought. And since the Korban Todah was not brought on Shabbat, we do not recite Psalm 100 because it is associated with the Korban Todah. Now, after that, we have Yichvod, and we have Ashrei, and we have the Hallelujahs, and we have the rest of the stuff that, okay. But what do we have on Shabbat? On Shabbat, we have additional Psalms. So back to page 374, and you will see that you have Psalm 19, and Psalm 34, and Psalm 90, and Psalm 91, and Psalm 135, and Psalm 136, and Psalm 33. And all those Psalms, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Before Psalm 92, before I'm getting into Psalm 92, which is on page 388. So I have what? 7 Psalms added to the unit that I don't have on weekdays, just on Shabbat. 2 things about it. 1, we know that on Shabbat we have more time. People are not running to get to work and whatever, so therefore we have more time. If we have more time, we can recite more Psalms. We can be better prepared for the tefillah. The tefillah is supposed to be more spiritual, let's call it, whatever that means, okay? And therefore, this is we take our time and we add material. By the way, we're going to see that also in the tefillah itself, in the Shema unit. We're going to have piyutim. We're going to have piyutim in the Kedusha. All that stuff is because we're not in a hurry. We can take our time in praising God. So we had 7 Psalms here. 7 representing the 7 days of the week, right? We had that same idea also in Kabbalah Shabbat, if you remember. Okay, it's not a random number. Okay. And if we have 7, that brings us to what? To page 388, which is Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat.
People have to prepare themselves when they go out of Korban. Like they're so preparing for tefillah.
Yeah.
But then they used to think about it, did they?
You really think so? They didn't think about it. You know that you have to keep the korban, many korbanot, you have to keep it and watch it for period of time, a week, a day, all that kind of stuff. You need to do smicha on some of the korbanot because you need to understand that I should have been the one that brought on the altar. You need to have to develop some sort of a connection with the animal, because then it's really going to hurt you. That kind of stuff. You need to check the animal. There's a lot of preparation there as well. It's more physical. It's more physical. Some of the korbanot were korbanot kapara, for sure. Some of them korban chatat, for example. Yeah.
Cost.
They cost. And the bikurim also cost.
pay for bread with sheep, but
See?
not the same way.
Not the same way.
Not the same way.
And so we bring also, if we're all like, doing that stuff, it's kind of part of the series to bring Korban, to bring Psalm 92 and 93, because, well, that's really talking about Shabbat. Okay, we had 92 and 93 already in Kabbalah. Shabbat, well, it says Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbat. It's pretty obvious. Okay? And from that point on, we continue a series of texts which is identical to the weekday up until Nishmat. That means, so we have Yehichvod, which is the bottom of 388. And what's going on over there? That's a collection of psukim, mainly from Tehillim. And if it's not from Tehillim, it's from Chronicles, but it's still the words of David, King David. Right? It's a collection of psukim. Then we have the Ashrei. Then we have all the hallelujahs. And before continuing with the other stuff, I want to say a word or two about that stuff. So, why that matters? Why that matters? Because there's a hierarchy. So, as I said, historically, that unit was smaller. It was only Ashrei. And then Psalm 150 was added. And then the one before that was added. And then the rest of the hallelujahs were added. And then the Hodu was added. And then Yehichvod was added. And then later on by Baruch David. And at the very end was Shirat Hayam. Oh, I'm sorry. And then the very, very end was Psalm 30. Why that matters? Who cares? It's still like, it's already like a matter of like hundreds of years ago that we're dealing with that. And this is the text, right? It's all one unit. Not exactly. It matters because in times of need, and that's a very loose term, we need to adjust. What does it mean? Let's assume that you were late for shul. You would never be late. Nobody's ever late to shul. But I heard of that phenomenon. Some people, I heard, sometimes it happens. And so the idea is that you're supposed to recite with the tzibur, with the kahal, with the congregation, the Shema, the Amidah. Now, if you're going to go and do all that stuff now, and I'm not talking about the way we do it. Saying if you really take your time, you do it with kavanah, you really focus on that, you do it the proper way, it takes time. Not only takes time, you're not going to be together with a congregation for when you're supposed to be. So what's the halacha? You skip. What do I skip? Well, it depends how you're late. How late you are. And there's a hierarchy. So if you're very, very, very late, you skip everything and you do only the Ashrei. If you have a little bit more time, then you add Psalm 150. If you have a little bit more time, the Psalm before that. If you have a little bit more time, do all the hallelujah. There's like a whole order of things, what you skip, what you cut first. And that has to do with the history of what the order of the things that were added. So the older the paragraph or the psalm made it, like, it's been there in the unit, you're less likely to cut it out. Okay, that's basically it. Now, there's one that there is, it's not an order, like, so for example, Shirat Hayam is something that was added much later, and it's actually not all the communities even accepted it. So Shirat Hayam is one of the first things that you're going to cut, even though it's biblical. Okay, so because it's the history. But on top of that, there's another element. What type of paragraph is that? that is. So Yehichvot, for example, is a collection of psukim, and therefore is in a lower status than a whole psalm. A whole psalm counts more because it's like a whole psalm. It's a chapter by itself versus a collection. The Hodu part is also a collection of verses. So you need to factor. Thank God you don't have to do that calculation. If you take any book of halacha, of Hilchot Tefillah, they bring it down. The Mishnah Berurah does that. Others do that. So you can find like the hierarchy. The practical solution is not to be late, and therefore, and just like avoid the whole thing. But no, they don't do that. This is the advanced class. You want to know what to skip? You better read open another book. We're not going to make it easy for you. Okay, so that's that. These are just like kind of preliminary thoughts about that. We're going to resume.
2 weeks.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, and we're going to delve a little bit more into those selections. Okay, I apologize. I got to run. Everybody, 3 weeks from today, correct?
Yeah.
From today. 2 classes. We skipped 2 classes.